Hey everybody, welcome to On the Homefront. I'm John Murphy, and I'm very happy to share a little bit of time with you this week. You might be catching us live here on WILI AM 1400 and 95.3 on the FM here Wednesdays at 5 o'clock. We're also on YouTube, but you can catch us on other stations in the area. Our program this week is going to end a little early for Red Sox coverage, so we're going to have 2 segments rather than 3. And for the second half of the program, we're going to talk about the Windham Theatre Guild. They have a new production opening on June 6th. Which is Radium Girls. Right here, about 100 yards up from our door, right here, is the Windham Theatre Guild. We'll have 3 cast members here after the break to talk about their new production. For the first part of the show today, we're going to continue in a series that I began last week looking at the end of life and decisions that we all have to face and figure out how to make the most of that transition. And the issues of legal permission and religious objection and personal planning all come into play, usually in a very private way. So these radio conversations are with people who are working in this area to help people learn more, to become more aware of choices, and to figure out a path that's proactive and positive in some way to make the most of this life change. And we have 2 people very involved with an organization here in Connecticut, Compassion and Choices. That's their name, and that's their website, compassionandchoices.org. Sitting next to me is Deltra James. She drove to us from Waterbury today. She's a mother of 5. She's a writer. She's a death doula, and she's very involved with patient advocacy. And she's also 6 years into being a breast cancer survivor. So congratulations on all that good work and well-being, and for driving here today, Deltra.
Thank you.
Thank you. Also with us today is Tim Appleton. He's a senior campaign director for the Connecticut and Delaware regions, and he's very involved with legislative affairs. So this is their first time on the show, and we'll have them back periodically along with other people to continue the conversation and keep the subject moving forward. So thank you both for being here today. And maybe, Tim, you could launch us with a little overview of the organization and how you chose to get involved in that as your path.
Thank you for having us, John.
You bet.
And thank you for joining us today, Deltra, as well. I'm Tim Appleton. I work for Compassion and Choices and the Compassion and Choices Action Network. We're the nation's oldest and largest nonprofit that works every day to improve care and expand options at end of life, so we can all chart our own end-of-life care journey aligned with our own values and beliefs. I've been doing this work now for 12 years for the organization. And when I first started, my responsibility was solely getting the law passed in Connecticut. And as time moved forward, my responsibilities increased. And at a certain point of my career in the organization, when we were smaller, I was responsible for all states just west of the Mississippi River, all the way from Florida up to Maine. Wow. So that was a lot. Since then, we've hired great people, and I focused my efforts now on Pennsylvania, Delaware, and Connecticut. Right.
And they had a victory in Delaware recently that we'll talk about in just a few minutes. But I want to bring in Deltra because she's involved in different levels of here. You know, being a doula at that stage is another level of connection that's very private with those folks at that time, those families, right? Mm-hmm. So how does this connect to a larger advocacy role? Because you're working on both sides of that.
Yeah, I feel I'm on multiple sides of things. As a patient, it affects me. And as someone who is deeply involved in the, specifically in my case, cancer community as a patient advocate, I decided to get death doula training after noticing that there was really rampant death anxiety within the community. But there are also a lot of people who wanted space to have conversations about death, to plan for it, to know how to talk about it with their children, their loved ones. And of course, there are people who want this option. And so that's what led me to Compassion and Choices. Honestly, I came across them through social media, looking for other death doulas, and I just so happened to see that they were going to be in Connecticut for a lobby day, and that's how we first connected.
A little bit of serendipity there.
I had no idea what I was going to do at the lobby day. I just showed up.
Right. Well, see, those are some of the good things social media brings. Apart from all the baggage that people complain about that's really damaging, it's a great tool for good energy to move around.
Absolutely. Find your people.
So maybe you two could share the thought of when you find a family that has to make hard decisions and they find obstacles. Maybe they're financial, but they could be religious, they could be legal. How do they manage that space in different states when we're a nation of 50, but where you die is huge about what your freedom really ends up being?
It's often discussed that end-of-life journeys are based on zip codes, and that's wrong. What we found out just yesterday with Governor Myers signing this bill is that...
That was in Delaware, right?
In Delaware yesterday.
Right.
Judy Gavados has been an advocate similar to Deltra for many years. She has a very aggressive form of cancer that was controlled for many years, and now it is not controlled.
Yep.
This is someone who has fought for this aid in dying law in Delaware for 5 or 6 years now, and has been in this fight every step of the way with me, a dear friend of mine. I left Delaware this morning at 6:45 a.m., and when the day before, around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, when the governor signed the bill, Judy Gavados had more rights than my dear friend here in Connecticut, Deltra James. That's wrong. That's got to change. And why we're in a protracted battle in Connecticut to pass a similar law here, because zip code should not define an end-of-life care journey. It's just not right. And that's the way it is here in the United States.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening here in Connecticut is what happened to a dear friend of mine, Linda Bluestein. Mm-hmm. And perhaps Jeff spoke about her. I don't know.
No.
But what Linda had to do, Bridgeport, Connecticut resident, she sued the state of Vermont to allow her to use the law because of a residency requirement. And instead of spending her last days on this earth with her family in Bridgeport, surrounded by her loved ones, which would have been her right had she lived in a different state like Vermont,
right,
she spent traveling back and forth, working on the extensive process to qualify for the law legally. Mm-hmm. And she made it just one day in time.
Wow.
So imagine what we are creating now with the disparity and the inequity of these laws as they're managed here in the United States. We're creating medical refugees where people have to travel to these different states and spend hours and hours. She literally spent 4 hours in the car one way, dying of cancer, with less than 6 months to live. In her case, it was less than 3 months to live. And we talk about another friend of mine, Kim Hoffman, who died without this option here in Connecticut. Her last words that she said to a friend of mine were, "I wish I would have gone to Maine, where they had where they had an aid in dying law." Now, that's just not right. We've got to make change.
Yeah. Maybe you could describe what it is that turns the scales to yes from no when it's a national challenge. And like you said, it's very interesting to me how people place states' rights in very inconsistent ways. Sometimes they want the state to be allowed to be the exception. And sometimes they want to say it's the same for everybody. And it's a real tennis ball. And it gets jerked around all the time, but you bring it up in a very painful way. Thank you for sharing that, because that's emotional stuff. People don't usually go here into this space. It's not comfortable. But if we can make it more comfortable, people will benefit. Mm-hmm. Just being able to find out, for example, websites. Here's where you can go find out about local contacts, local resources. They have a website that's loaded with information. And maybe what we could do is, this might be a moment to walk us through briefly. If you go to compassionandchoices.org, they've also had a plan for the next few years that's really well articulated. Can you walk us through what people would find now to help them pursue this conversation?
Well, here in Connecticut, they can go to compassionandchoices.org/Connecticut. And what you'll find there are storytellers like Deltra, who has could be doing anything tonight and has been so generous with her time with us to hear about what this law is and what it isn't, what it does and doesn't do. And it helps deconstruct our website, and stories like Deltra's more than anything, help deconstruct the fear and misinformation opponents have almost created a cottage industry around in order to defend a broken status quo. The status quo now, as you know, here in this state is, well, we have hospice care and that covers everybody. We have palliative care, that covers everybody.
One size fits all.
Exactly. And what Deltra, in your work is one size doesn't fit all. People want different options and choices. And what all this law does is to provide one more option for people that may or may not want to use it. Right. I've been working on this law in states all across the country now for 12 years, and I can't tell you, as I'm sitting here today, if I'd ever use the law, because I'm not in the position to even make that choice. And Deltra, I don't want to speak for you, but you might feel the same way.
Yeah, I think that it's powerful to have choice. I can certainly say that I am for it, but I can't say that, in my moments that I would utilize it. But I know, I'll just give the example of recently deciding to get medication for anxiety. I don't use medication for anxiety every day. I don't even use the medication for anxiety mid-panic attack at times. But just having it, knowing that I have it there, it gives me a sense of peace.
A comfort.
Yeah, it's a comfort.
Yeah.
And I think that this is quite similar.
Well, the thing that makes what you're saying so clear is that everybody is totally unique. You'll never know how your unique body will end its journey. It's going to be at your time and with what's happening. And so the law should serve whatever it is. It doesn't matter. You're just taking the ride, so to speak. So help them on the way, so to speak.
Well, put another way, maybe, I might not ever use this for myself, but I would never stand in judgment for someone given a certain set of rigid safeguards and rigid set of circumstances, this option. Why would I ever deny it to someone else should they seek it? And this extends to other people in the medical community as well. One of our leading legislative champions, State Senator Suud Anwar, is a physician. And he has he has said as a state senator, on many occasions, I'm a physician. I don't think I would ever prescribe this medication for my patients. Mm-hmm. But I would never want to seek to deny it to another physician with another patient who might have a different point of view. And I think that's completely reasonable.
Well, then you honor the provider's universe that they have to live in, because they're a provider and they have to decide. So just kind of allowing others to do it means there are other choices. You're not the only source injecting politics into what is a limited choice. So that's a different ethical dance, I guess, as hard as it is. I just want to mention, in case you're catching us on the radio, we're talking today about CompassionAndChoices.org, an organization working at end of life options. And in the studio today we have Tim Appleton and Deltra James. So we have a few minutes to go, and maybe you could look ahead to the coming year to see what efforts are underway to either plan for the next session, because the current session obviously is wrapping up very soon and nothing is in there right now, as far as we know, right? So it's always in the background, though. There's always, this thing that comes and goes year to year. So when you look ahead to the next year, what are your thoughts and where do you think people might be able to move forward?
Well, we're very hopeful that the momentum created in the passage of the law in a state in Delaware here on the East Coast will help us in a legislative journey starting next February of this coming year.
Right.
We're also just blessed to have advocates like Deltra James to talk about her desire to expand options here in Connecticut. And, we're just so very grateful, Deltra, to you to be part of this journey with us. We're so, and we can't thank you enough for that. Are you looking forward to engaging in more legislative activity. You came to one of our lobby days.
Yes.
Hopefully there's more on tap for you.
Yes. And when I went to that lobby day, it was the first time that I had gone to one, and I had an opportunity to speak with a senator, I believe. And that's where I come into play, is just sharing my story, having conversations from human to human.
Yeah.
That day I shared a story that I often tell about the compassion that me and my family showed to our beloved family pet, Oreo, who we had since I was 15 years old, and my children had gotten to love her.
Sure.
And like many children, that pet loss was their first experience with death, but it created an experience with death that wasn't negative for them, that they still talk about, and they got to sit there with her and love on her and say their goodbyes. And she had been suffering, and we didn't want her to suffer. Nobody wants to suffer, and no one wants to watch someone that they love suffer when it's actually happening, when you're in the situation.
Yeah.
And I'm their mother, and so I would want them to be able to watch me go through death in my own unique way. And I think living with a disease like mine, where a lot of control is taken away from me, advocating and then certainly having an option such as this would give me a sense of control. So.
And for people as they get older, or as their parents get older, it's another part of the radar screen that can be a port of call for support, or a place of darkness and confusion. When you need it the most, you are less prepared. So it's a positive way to do this. So maybe I just have a couple of minutes left, but I want to honor the work you do with people in their most private moments. Do you find through some common experience any misunderstandings or things that they discover that really weren't quite that way about death or the process that they had to find out? Is there any common thread as people go through their individual novellas, but there's a thread there? Mm-hmm. Can you find words for that thread?
It is hard to find words for that thread, but
25 words
I will say when you're very far away from a situation, it's easier to, maybe insert an opinion that you wouldn't have once you are in it. And I always say to people, that's why I want conversations surrounding death in general to be normalized, like what you're doing with your end of life series, because it's so much harder to make plans and have these conversations in a way that really respects everyone's humanity when emotions are heightened, because you're very face to face with it. Like right now, I'm living with essentially a terminal illness. I haven't been told I'm out of treatment options and I only have 6 months to live, but it's very different. I predominantly work with fellow cancer patients around their anxieties around death and making end of life plans. And it's just so much harder to do and think through when one, their options are limited and they know it, and two, it's very emotional because they're right in it.
Yeah, and the precious gift of time is not there.
Yes.
When the earlier you think about it, it's not just insurance, it's your spirit, and you're protecting it for the next stage, or whatever that's going to be, and whoever's on the other side of where you go, they're better prepared. So that's a beautiful combination you try to work with. So I commend you for that. It's hard to find words in the right way. Tim, do you have a last thought before we wrap up? Thank you for your good work on this, and we'll stay in touch in the year ahead. We'll have other guests coming in here. We have some other folks with hospice coming later in June. But perhaps a last thought.
This is important. This is an important series you're doing. We're so pleased to be able to join you. I've also heard this described, end-of-life planning, as the very best and last gift a parent can provide their children.
Wow, that's a really good way. That's a great thought, and perhaps that's a good note to end our first conversation on, because that's the most powerful thing we have that goes right through the microphones and right through that lens. So I thank, for people who are staying with us, thank you for staying with us. We hope this conversation opens some doors for you. And I thank you for going so deep with the conversation and staying there for a while. I thank you, and I look forward to having more conversations.
Yeah, let's stay in touch.
We will, absolutely. Take care. Alrighty, so we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to shift gears a little bit and head to the good work of the Windham Theatre Guild. Don't go away. All righty, we're back in the studio here on the Homefront. Glad to have you with us. Just want to mention, too, if you want to join us in the studio, if you want to share information, send us an email, send us a flyer. If you want to be a guest, the door is always open for you. Just use email john@humanartsmedia.com. We're going to be here all summer, so be sure to stay in touch, and we'll do the same for you. So I'm always happy to focus on the Windham Theatre Guild. They've been here for so many years, just down the street with the Burton Levitt Theater. They just finished a Beetlejuice thing, and they're about to launch into a new one, Radium Girls, opening on June 6th. And we have 3 cast members here to join us today to kind of brighten up the studios, if I could say that and not get thrown out of the room. I know there's bad jokes coming, no additional charge. But we have Jim York is here. We have Jaelyn Middleton and Nick Hargrave.
Actually, someone different. It's Alexa DeAndrade today.
Well, I tell you what, we'll have to talk to Martha about that typo. Thank you for correcting me. Anyway, you're all in the cast. So what we could do is talk a little bit about how you're approaching the roles and the story, which is a true story of technology, industry, health, politics, all brought to life. And this is a pretty good time to do the story with everything going on about high tech today.
Absolutely.
You're walking in that space. So tell us the story a little bit without giving it all away.
Sure.
Yeah, Jim.
So the story starts in the 1920s with these young girls getting jobs in a dial painting plant. They're working for a watch factory.
Well, that used to be a big deal, the glow-in-the-dark dials,
Yes,
right? Big
exactly.
deal. Okay.
And this Dr. von Shishaki, he made the radium, and Madame Curie went and promoted it and everything. And so we got the opportunity to tell this story based on D.W. Gregory's play about the Radium Girls. And I'm playing Arthur Reeder, who's the president of the company. And it's a very political part in that role. So
I'm sure you'll relish that. Just grind it away, Jim. There you go, right?
It's a lot of work.
That's right.
A lot of work, yeah.
Now, from the notes I got, you have 10 actors and 30 roles. So you're talking a lot of head hopping here.
Yes.
Can you talk about how you rehearse that head hopping and how you...
I'll leave that to the multiple players.
Well, change your persona so quickly in a authentic way.
I'll take that one. I play several different characters throughout the show, and a lot of it is about voice. Each of the characters has a different voice, whereas Tom's got a more deep bass and a bit of a southern drawl to him, whereas the reporter has a 1920s reporter voice that lets you talk very quickly and very to the point. Pointed talking exactly. And
well done.
The other characters all have variations on what they sound like. There's also a lot of physicality, which is a lot harder to demonstrate via radio. But carrying yourself in different ways helps you differentiate which character you are to the audience.
Sure.
Without having to rely solely on the costuming, because these costume changes are very fast, and sometimes a character is just denoted by a certain jacket and a certain hat.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, that makes the pace possible as well. How about for yourself?
So I'm sort of facing the same situation. So I play 4 different characters. I play one of the Radium Girls, Irene. I also play Miss Wiley, a board member, and Mrs. Michaels. The biggest thing for me is the change of voice. So for Irene Rudolph, I'm actually doing a typical New Jersey accent because we first start out in New Jersey. And then Miss Michaels, she's supposed to be a housewife, so I'm thinking of like a typical housewife voice in the 1920s. And then Miss Wiley, she's a more educated woman, very like clear-cut, to the point.
Should I be thinking black and white for some of this stuff, do you think? Is that part of it? That, like in my head, some of the noir aspects, some of the dark politics?
It is. It's very, very dark politics throughout. And it's very deep. The play is a lot more dramatic than I originally had anticipated, and all the characters, with the exception of Tom, seems to be in Grace, of course, the lead lady in that. Their characters are much more innocent and realistic to people, or normal to people.
At least at the beginning.
At the beginning,
Yeah.
yes, exactly.
Things do change, yeah.
So the Waterbury Clock Company back then was the place that the Radium Girls from New Jersey came up to in Connecticut to work on dial painting.
The Brass City.
Opening the studios, dial painting studios and everything, because a lot of places were building their own studios.
So with this backdrop for the story and the narrative, can you paint us a little picture of the sets or what the vision might be for where this is going to transpire?
Go ahead.
I'll take this one. So
Please.
think about it actually in the middle of the set. We're planning on actually having the factory table, and that's always going to be on set just because the reason why we are all in the thick of it in Radium Girls is because of what the Radium Girls had to do at the factory. Grace, Irene, and Catherine, they were all basically, told for a certain way to like how to paint the dials, and it caused them to get radium poisoning.
That's right.
So we are planning on actually having the factory set on center stage the entire time. So we always have that reminder of why we are all here.
Sure.
We are also going to have a gigantic clock face looming over the set all the time with glowing numbers on it as a stylized countdown of the time the girls have left to live, and also a reminder of the job that they were made to do.
Yeah, the ultimate time card here, the ultimate timestamp, right?
Yeah.
And as a period piece now, since we're going back a little bit, how are you injecting sound or music to help add to the environment?
Yeah. So, for instance, in the situation of the reporter and everything, they're using an old style microphone.
Okay,
for
cool.
that part. And
I think I've seen that mic in some other productions. You have some cool microphones.
Yes.
You do.
We're actually building a new one that's going to have a bunch of springs on it, so it's one of those big circular ones.
Like shock
with
mounts?
The rail. Yes, exactly that.
Sweet.
It's a very fancy one that they're putting a lot of work into, the visual design of that. As far as the sound design of the show, a lot of the show's power comes from its quieter moments, where you have the big horrifying story boiled down to two people having a quiet conversation. And a lot of the power that the show has comes from the restraint that it shows with avoiding big, crazy sound effects and wild, sweeping scores in favor of a more intimate production.
Sure.
Right.
Well, less is more in these contexts, right?
And that's exactly what Wallace, who's the director, Wallace Johnson, is pushing for, to have more of the characters identified by themselves rather than big sets that they have to be elaborate in.
Just want to mention, in case you joined us in the radio, we're talking about the Windham Theatre Guild today. The production of the Radium Girls opens June 6th. They have performances June 6, 7, 12, 13, and 14, 7:30 in the evening. And then June 8th and 15th, they have matinees at 2. If you go to windhamtheatreguild.org, it's the website. You get your tickets. You'll be all set to go. We have a few minutes to go, but maybe you could share a bit about the acting team at the Theatre Guild and the joy you have each season to kind of figure out what are the stories going to be, new people coming in and veterans who are staying. How has it been this season? As you've had some other great shows here during the year, but we're coming into the end of the season.
This show in particular, I haven't been in a show here for a few years. And when we got cast for this group, it was pretty amazing. The people came in together. I don't believe many of us have worked together. And it seemed to just blend immediately. I'm very comfortable with the cast, and I'm hoping that they're very comfortable with me. But it's really a nice group of people really working to make this enterprising production. So we're looking to do the best that we can for this audience and for what the Radium Girls had to go through.
Yeah. And maybe for the two of you, you could share thoughts about how long you've been with the Guild. I haven't gotten to meet you until today, but some of the acting background and what your hopes are for the year for other productions and your journey into this art form.
Sure. I have done the last couple of shows with the Guild, starting with Pride and Prejudice back in February. I played Mr. Darcy in that one, and that was a very fun role to do. And I like continuing with the same group and doing different performances of different shows with the same group, because you get to encounter some of the same people and also mix with new people who are coming in, and I forget where that sentence was going.
Well, it's like a repertoire theater.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
A group, yeah.
You get to experience a lot of variety. And I look forward to doing more shows with this theater in particular.
Well, thank you for being here, and I certainly wish you great success with the work ahead. I look forward to having you back.
Thank you.
And how about for you, too, your journey?
My journey. So I actually started out with the Windham Theatre Guild about a year ago. I've only been doing acting for a year, actually.
Okay. Early on.
Yep. So I started out with Lysistrata, directed by Ava Molnar. And I was
It's
actually
a real casual, lighthearted opener, isn't it?
Yeah, right?
Sure. That's the light touch.
And then actually most of my experience comes with musical theater at the Windham Theatre Guild. So I've done Little Mermaid, that was also directed by Wallace Johnson, and Rocky Horror. So I've done both of those. And now it's very nice to do Radium Girls because I get to meet new people. I haven't worked with anyone on this cast besides Jaelyn. And it's nice to act in a play that has more of a deeper meaning in some areas and bears such relevance to today.
Well, you know, when you look at each year at the Theater Guild, they do a nice range of content because you have so many options of classics, reinterpreting them in a new setting, traditional classics, new pieces. So I want to thank you for being here today, and we'll keep in touch with the Theater Guild and Martha throughout the year, as we always wish you the very best. Again, I want to mention the site, windhamtheaterguild.org is the website. Opening June 6, 7, 12, 13, and 14. That's all at 7:30, and the matinee at 2 p.m. on the 8th and the 15th. So I look forward to seeing the show, and I wish you a great run.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll take a break for a couple of short messages, and we'll come right back to close the show. Don't go away. Here on WILI, that's on the AM 1400, 95.3 on the FM. On Friday mornings, we're on WICH in Norwich, New London. We're also on WECS at Eastern, the NPR affiliate, which covers a lot of the region with the FM. And if you go to the WILI radio YouTube channel, all of our afternoon shows, well, I guess most of them are recorded and available 24/7. So if you ever miss a show, you can find out who the guests are, or better yet, just subscribe and you'll get every new show when it comes out, and you'll stay all informed in all these great local shows here. A couple of things before I close. On Saturday, June 7th, our local public access TV channel is having another open house. That's from 1 to 4 at their studio locations at 207 Tuckey Road in North Windham, just a few miles here from downtown Willie. It's a great program to learn video technology and learn how to tell your own stories. They provide the equipment and the training. That's why it's called Public Access. Channel 192 on Spectrum. The open house again is Saturday, June 7th from 1 to 4. I also got an email today from Sarah Kaufhold with the Concenari vocal community. They have a concert Saturday, June 7th at 7 o'clock at Vandermaiden Recital Hall at UConn. It's the Celtic Journey. It'll feature a mix of performances of songs with the Celtic tradition as the roots, voices of Consinity, also the Concenari Community Choir, the Concenari Youth Choirs, and special guest, the Jolly Beggars. That's going to be at Vandermaiden, 7 o'clock on June 7th. So, just a quick thing too. We've had the Connecticut Veterans for Peace on the program a couple of times. There's a site here I want you to know about, thestrugglevideo.org. It's about what's happening in Gaza. It's a horrific situation that is not getting as much coverage, and there's really bad suffering there that's beyond the rules of human warfare. This is a local connection to this effort, thestrugglevideo.org. So that's it for now. Thank you very much for sharing your time, and we'll see you next week.